The RCMP is investigating foreign interference in Canada's affairs, including possible election meddling. In a letter to MPs, RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki says the investigations are ongoing, but she provided few details. The CBC's Karina Roman joins us live with more. So, Karina, what else does Brenda Lucki say in that letter?
Well, this letter was to MPs on the Procedure and House Affairs Committee, which is already looking into foreign interference in general into Canada's elections. But in response to a global news report from a few weeks ago, which alleged that there was Chinese foreign funding going towards a clandestine network of up to 11 candidates running in the federal election 2019, the committee decided, I think we want to expand and extend our investigation and look especially into those allegations. And it asked then for all parties that would possibly have any information to give documents and briefing notes and that kind of thing. So this letter from Brenda Lucki is in response to that request for documents, and because she talks about ongoing investigations, basically she's saying you're not going to get the information you want from us because I don't want to jeopardize these investigations. That said, in her letter, she does say that the RCMP is aware of foreign actor interference in relation to a broad range of activities, including interference in democratic processes. She does not mention China in particular at all, or any particular country when she talks about this. She does say in relation to the 2019 federal election, the RCMP did not have any criminal investigations into election-related activities as there was no evidence at the time. Noting the language there, the threshold she's talking about is actual criminal investigation as opposed to perhaps just surveillance. And she also talks about at that time. I do need to remind viewers that Prime Minister had been asked about this in the past on his foreign trip to the summits in Asia, and he said that he was never briefed or given any information about this network of 11 candidates running in the federal election 2019, any indirect or direct funding of them, he had no information on that. But this letter does go on to say that the RCMP can confirm that it currently does have investigations into broader foreign actor interference activities. But as you said, Andrew, no specifics. When we talk about foreign actors, are we talking about China? Are we talking about Iran, Russia? Which countries? We don't know what these broader activities are. We don't know specifically if, when she talks about democratic processes, we're talking about a federal election. So there's not a lot of detail there, and it definitely relieves a lot of questions unanswered. Yeah,
it sure did. And that, of course, came up in question period this afternoon, where the opposition was trying to get to some of those answers. What did we hear?
Well, it did dominate question period. Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservatives, repeatedly asking, was the Prime Minister ever briefed by security or intelligence agencies, by police, by public servants, if there was any kind of interference in the elections? And, you know, that led to a number of exchanges, but it did not lead to the answers that he was looking for. Have a listen.
The Prime Minister has used words to obscure the answer. He says there was not interference in a significant way that would have changed the outcome. Was there any interference of any kind?
As our intelligence services have highlighted many times in many different fora for Canadians, interference in Canadians' affairs by foreign powers is an ongoing thing, whether it's cyber interference, whether it's interference with communities here in Canada, whether it's attempts to influence the media. These are things that go on an ongoing basis, and things that our intelligence agencies and police agencies work very, very hard to counter. But Canadians can be reassured that the integrity of our elections was not compromised.
In making that statement, he is referring to independent panels that were put together, comprised to look into foreign interference in both the 2019 and the 2021 elections. Both panels found that there was no interference, that it did not compromise the election. But Pierre Poilievre saying that's not what I asked, but he did not get the yes or no answer he was looking for from the Prime Minister.
All right, an interesting story. We'll continue to follow. Karina, thank you. The CBC's Karina Roman live in Ottawa. For more on this, I'd like to bring in Michel Juneau-Katsuya. He's a former senior intelligence officer at CSIS, as well as former chief of the agency's Asia-Pacific division. He joins us now live from Montreal. So, Michel, what do you think the RCMP is looking for? When you listen to the statement from Brenda Lucki, the commissioner, Well, first, we'll get your reaction to that. What do we know from that statement?
I think we find out that either she wants to cover the fact that they don't know too much and they are ill-equipped to be capable to investigate correctly. Be sure to understand me. They are not incapable to investigate. They're very qualified to investigate. The problem is the legal framework that they work with is not appropriate. We have been, experts have been asking for many years to probably have a foreign interference law, similar to what the Australian has given themselves, that is very, very clear and gives the right tools for the investigation. Unfortunately, the RCMP is going to have a very, very hard time. I suspect they will not be capable to come out with the threshold for a criminal prosecution, despite the fact that we might find some hard evidence that there was an attempt to interfere. But that attempt has been an ongoing thing. I reported back in 1998 when I was with CSIS that the Chinese embassy has given to the liberal and the conservative political parties, both to try to influence, again, the elections. So it's been an ongoing for many, many, many years.
So when you say the RCMP doesn't have the tools or the legal tools don't exist in Canada, they do it, you mentioned Australia, like what is it that they would need?
They would have a law that clearly defined the inappropriate action that can be done by either a Canadian or foreign agent, that could be diplomats. We know, for example, that the Chinese consulate in Toronto is probably the most aggressive consulate when it comes to monitoring and bullying the Chinese community in Toronto in particular. So we need to be capable to define exactly what is inappropriate. That's why I'm recommending to look at what the Australian has done, because they have a very similar legal system as ours, and they have dealt with that situation, and they started to define what exactly foreign interference is about and what are the consequences if you do so.
What do you make of what the Prime Minister had to say in question period, where he said, that it is an ongoing thing, that foreign interference is an ongoing thing, but he said he wanted to reassure Canadians the integrity of our elections was not compromised?
Well, he also said that he has not been briefed at that period of time, which questioned exactly if CSIS has done the briefing that he was supposed to receive or was entitled to receive at that period of time. Unfortunately, we saw also with the convoy how much there was confusion and lack of reporting adequately, or certain interpretation that were erroneous coming from CSIS itself about what was national security. So in that perspective, I'd say clearly we need now to understand and to define exactly what foreign interference is about. You've mentioned it very well, Andrew. There's not only China. The CBC Fifth Estate is doing an excellent report on the foreign interference done by Iran. There's other countries that are doing exactly the same thing. Saudi Arabia is another one, just name only a few. We need a law that is extremely clear, that gives the tools to the police enforcer to be capable to sort of investigate adequately, collect the evidence, and pass the threshold that we have in court for criminal prosecution.
Okay, so that's what you think needs to happen, but in the meantime, do you think Canada is particularly susceptible to foreign interference, or are a lot of countries susceptible to this?
All countries are susceptible. All countries are susceptible. Canada is no less or more susceptible. We did act naively for too many years, particularly when it came to dealing with China. We misunderstood how China and Chinese intelligence services were operating in Canada. We allowed that for a long period of time. We are infested, and I use the word adequately, we are infested with agents of influence that are at all levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal. There's a need for a deep cleanup, but a great amount of awareness also that needs to be passed along elected officials, which are in some cases, very naively try to sort of cooperate and get support from the Chinese community. But what they don't understand is very often the people they're dealing with are agents of influence acting on behalf of the Chinese intelligence services and the Chinese government.
Michel, thank you. Michel Juneau-Katsuya is a former senior intelligence officer at CSIS, as well as the former chief of its Asia-Pacific division.
Thank you.